We have an incredible story here that highlights just how absurd the war on drugs has become. Think Progress reports Orlando police pulled over a man and arrested him for drug possession, but it turns out that drug was a Krispy Kreme donut. After being pulled over for failing to come to a full stop before driving out of a parking lot, a very serious crime, 64-year-old Daniel Rushing told the Orlando Sentinel he was arrested, jailed, and strip-searched all over a few flakes of sugar in his car. Police thought the flakes were crystal meth. 2 roadside drug tests came back positive for meth. Rushing ended up spending 10 hours in jail and was released on a $2,500 bond. Prosecutors later dropped the case against him after another test determined that the flakes were not an illegal drug. All right, so this is very important, and this highlights a few issues. Those drug tests that they use on the street, they have an immensely high fail rate. It's not foolproof. It's this thing where, you got the water, and then if it turns blue, or if the cotton swab or whatever turns blue, oh, see, this is a drug. That's actually not the case. So many things trigger a false positive in there. Even some standard cleaning materials do. So if you spray Febreze in your car, and let's say it gets on your, the rug or the carpet in your car, and then they come up there and they do a test on it, and they think, hey, we think they sprinkled cocaine on the backseat of the car, and then they do the test, well, it'll come back blue, and that's not because there's fucking cocaine there, it's because you used a cleaning product there. I mean, it's amazing that we still use these things as if it's like, oh, we got them, see, it came back as a positive drug test. I forget the exact number, like 30% or something of those are false positives. And by the way, a lot of times they use that, and then it doesn't even get to court, and people do a plea deal. And they're like, oh, it's a positive drug test, and the person knows they didn't have drugs, but they think that's a scientific test that they're not going to be able to prove wrong. So they're like, okay, I'll do a deal, I'll do a plea deal. How many innocent people were punished as a result of this shitty test? The test should be eliminated, man. This isn't good enough. They have more accurate tests that they can do in the lab. Now, in this case, the guy was like, I'm not going to fucking sit here and take a plea deal or anything. I know I didn't do anything wrong. You guys fucked up somewhere. So credit to this person for that. But then what happened? Went to the lab, came back, it wasn't a drug. Look at what they put this poor guy through, all because there was some sugar, a little bit of a glazed donut on the ground that they thought was crystal meth. So those tests need to be eliminated. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is, to be clear, those tests they use on the street, obviously not the scientific ones that work that they use in the lab, which probably take longer to do, by the way. But that's point number 1. Point number 2 is, we got to end the drug war. This is crazy. Now, oftentimes, I watch the show Cops. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. And I call that the biggest 50-50 show on planet Earth, because half the time when they're stopping people who are doing assaults and they're committing serious crimes, they're heroes. The cops are heroes in that respect. You got to keep it real. They're heroes in that respect. If you're stopping somebody who's committing an assault or, doing some giant robbery or whatever, these guys are heroes. But then the other 50% of the time, it's just cops harassing people for drugs. I watch that one and I feel horrible for these poor victims, and that's what they are. Victims who are living in a fucking police state in an occupation where the cops honestly search them for any reason and all reasons. You could tell that constitutional rights are violated in the show. It's amazing that these people don't sue, and they would win those suits because they have a right to be protected from unreasonable search and seizure, but oftentimes the cops start searching and they pretend like it's plain sight search, and it's not. So, but you have to end the drug war because you're just locking up people who aren't actually criminals. It's like locking somebody up who drinks a Corona or has some Jack Daniels or pops a Xanax at night or drinks a Monster Energy in the morning before work. These are all drugs. They change your consciousnness. But we draw the line at some drugs and say, well, no, that one we're going to lock you up in a cage if you use it. Why? I don't know, it has stronger effects. So what? So what? So you take a big upper or a big downer. Whoop-de-frickin-do. Should you be locked up for years over that? Should you be harassed by people in a uniform? I'm supposed to take it seriously just because they're wearing uniforms? Oh, they must be doing something right. They have uniforms. Fuck that. Free every nonviolent drug offender today and end the war on drugs. Legalize, tax, and regulate. We can't keep having stories like this, man. And by the way, this is just an outlier that's particularly insane and egregious, but even if it was fucking crack cocaine or crystal meth or whatever. That person has a medical issue if they're addicted. They should get help. They shouldn't be locked up in a cage. This isn't a time to be punitive. And honestly, most of the time when people do drugs, they're totally normal people who can use in moderation. 80% of people, according to Dr. Carl Hart, who's an expert on addiction. So we got to stop with this drug war, man. It's insane, and this is another example of it right here.